I'm hearing a lot of chatter about Aiyuk and Higgins. What about the Lions? It's not happening.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Tuesday, June 18th and a Wednesday, June 19th. Tomorrow is a Juneteenth. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. If you have not subscribed and haven't checked us out on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel, please do that. We are out there. We are visible. You can see me wearing my Financial Architects t-shirt today. You can see the 222 sign. You can see the backdrop. All of that on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Also, please check us out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and all of those outlets as well. Thanks for being with us here on a Tuesday, where we are brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can follow us on the Twitter machine at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions. Also, we are on Facebook, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, where we post the podcast daily as well. Coming up on the show today, getting some tweets, anytime there's news about a wide receiver, I get fans, Lions fans, and I get it. Lion fans want to go for it. Lion fans want to add to the roster. I get it. And I get text, tweets, whatever, Facebook messages from people. Why don't they go get this guy? Why don't they go get that guy? I'm going to explain why that's not going to happen. We'll do that first, coming up here on Locked On Lions. Also, more news on kickers. The Lions are now down a kicker. Jake Bates is in officially. What did the Lions do to free up a roster spot for him? We will tell you coming up here on Locked On Lions. Had a very interesting discussion today at work about culture and Dan Campbell, which I want to share with the audience. We'll do that coming up next, or coming up in a little bit. Also, a quick take on the NBA Finals. I saw some symmetry between the Celtics, the 2024 NBA champions, and your Detroit Lions. And we will play our first call of the day, courtesy of my new bit here on the show from SpeakPipe. Yes, I have a SpeakPipe account. So if you go to speakpipe.com/Dery podcast page, DERY podcast page. We had a ton of submissions. Thank you to the listeners for chiming in on SpeakPipe. Everybody kept it clean. Everybody was professional. Thank you for doing that. Heard from a guy named Frank as well. Frank on the east side. But we have a winner. We will play you his call coming up momentarily as well, right here on Locked On Lions. But we appreciate you being with us today. All right. So here's the deal. A lot of news about receivers. It's always about wide receivers in the offseason. It's always unhappy wide receivers receiving the franchise tag, not wanting to play on the tag, receivers asking for a trade. Remember a couple of off seasons ago, Deebo Samuel's unhappy about his contract. This guy's unhappy about his deal. Earlier this year, Justin Jefferson didn't report to OTAs to the Vikings. Then they got his deal done. He's now the highest paid receiver in the league. Two news items of note that then always seem to link to the Lions, and I'm here to squash it. Number one, Tee Higgins has been franchised by the Bengals, and they're trying to work out a deal with Tee Higgins. You got Jamar Chase on the Bengals, also unsure if he'll show up for training camp because he wants a new contract. It's going to be very difficult for Cincinnati to pay both Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins north of $30 million a year. Are you really going to have two $30 million a year receivers, so $60 million, and then you're spending $55 million on Joe Burrow? I don't see it happening. I think Higgins plays on the tag around $23 million or whatever it is, and Chase is already making close to 30. That's number one. So so that's just one example. The other example is Brandon Aiyuk. Reports are out there now that Jaden Daniels, who was Aiyuk's teammate in college, Aiyuk told Daniels in a conversation, and then Daniels blurted it out to the media, hey, Brandon tells me the Niners don't want him. And certainly the Commanders, who drafted Daniels number 2 out of LSU, would love to have Brandon Aiyuk on their team to go along with scary Terry McLaurin. So, of course, I get Lion fans hit me up on the socials. Diesel, can we get Aiyuk to Detroit? Here's my response. No. I'd love Brandon Aiyuk alongside J-Mo and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who wouldn't? But if you're going to go get Brandon Aiyuk and trade with the 49ers, you're going to have to sign Brandon Aiyuk, and that's going to cost you, again, north of $30 million. Justin Jefferson is now making the most of any receiver in the league. He's making $35 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown's making $30. Brandon Aiyuk is going to want Amon-Ra money. He'll probably get it. But no teams are spending that kind of dough on 2 receivers at the same time. It's not happening. And look at the Lions for a second. Should the Lions go after Tee Higgins? Would love that. Should the Lions go after Brandon Aiyuk? Would adore that. Of course. Add to your stable. Who would you rather have out on the field? Aiyuk or Donovan Peoples-Jones? Yeah, of course I'll take Aiyuk. Who'd you rather have, Tee Higgins or Antoine Green? Duh. That's not happening. Brad Holmes wasn't ready to give Josh Reynolds $4 million a year. I'm not saying the Lions are cheap and stingy, but the Lions pay their own. They extend the guys that they've drafted, like Penei Sewell, guys that they've traded for that were in the prime of their career, like Jared Goff. St. Brown got extended. You know there's going to be some money that they're going to want to spend to keep Aleem McNeil, to keep Aiden Hutchinson. You're not letting Aiden Hutchinson walk in a few years. Sam Laporte is a contract's going to come up in a few years. So the Lions are not NOT giving long-term expensive deals to Brandon Aiyuk or Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase. It's not happening. I just don't see it. The only way I would see the Lions getting these guys, it would be a rental and then they're gone. And I don't see the Lions giving players or draft picks to the 49ers, whom they're competing for in the NFC, near the top of the NFC, for a rental player. I don't see that happening. Now, I would be very surprised if it happened. I would welcome that kind of talent here. But this is how the league operates. And Brad Holmes, we know, does not go out and normally hit home runs with trades or free agency. Not normally. All right. Acquiring DJ Reader was a triple. It was a really good free agency move. It's a little bit banged up. Took him a few days to get signed. Isn't making the 16, 17, 18 million that maybe some of the top defensive linemen at his position are making, the tackles at least. But he got him for 2 at 26.5. Like, it was smart. All right. It was smart to bring back Alex Anzalone, Gaines media poster boy, on a multi-year deal at a good, decent price. David Montgomery, you got him for nothing. $6 million a year, 3 at 18? Remember when Jamal Williams wanted that kind of money? That wasn't happening. They make upgrades. They make smart moves. Would Brad Holmes love to have Brandon Aiyuk on his roster? Of course. But worth that kind of dough, and you already have a $30 million receiver in the Sun God, it's just not happening. But I know Lion fans are so juiced up for this season and so excited that they see something like this and they go, oh, just pump the brakes here. There's a reason why the Lions have not added a receiver. I think they want to give Antoine Green and Donovan Peoples-Jones a chance to compete and perform, as opposed to just throwing tons of money in some sort of trade to get a player on another team's roster right now. Remember, Tee Higgins is property of the Bengals. Brandon Aiyuk right now is property of the 49ers. Amari Cooper's unhappy in Cleveland, wants a new contract. Really good player. He wants a lot of money. And he's property of the Browns at the moment. So that's my take on that situation. I know Lion fans, they're going for it. We're going for it. Organization is trying to get to the Super Bowl. Would those players help you get there? Yes. But from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, that's just not happening. Not going to take place. Remember when they let Kenny Golladay walk away? Thank God. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? One of the best non-moves in Lions history. Kenny Golladay, goodbye. All right, coming up next, we do have more kicker news. I was talking to my main man from Financial Architects today that I work with, Chavez Vincent. He's an everydayer. And he's like, I can't wait to hear your podcast about Jake Bates. I'm like, you know it, baby. Let's go. Let's ride. Some Jake Bates news. It's everyday Bates. We'll do that next. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball. NBA Finals are done. Now we got the Stanley Cup Finals Game 5 tonight. If you want to put some money down on the Oilers or the Panthers, you can do that. And bet on it all at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the NBA, from the Finals MVP or the Conn Smythe winner to who's going to hit one out of the park. Tigers playing tonight in Atlanta. All right, Atlanta. Given an opportunity to try to bounce back after last night's loss. Oh, surprise. They only scored 1 run. You want to do an over-under on the Tigers and runs scored? You can do that at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we are back on Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate you checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Yes, big news today. The Detroit Lions made it official, 100% official, as they announced the signing of Jake Bates. We have talked about the UFL All-Pro kicker for seems like months now. The Michigan Panther booted through a 64-yarder in the first game at Ford Field, hit a couple other 60-yard field goals at the stadium where the Lions reside, of course. And Adam Schefter reported over the weekend he got a 2-year deal with the Lions. According to our friends at Pride of Detroit, Jake Bates is going to make a base salary of $795,000 this season. Next year's base salary with signing bonus and workout bonus would be $1.085 million. And he's getting $150,000 in guaranteed money from the Lions, regardless of if he makes the team. If he does not make the roster and sticks for 2 seasons, he can earn, if he does make the roster, I should say, and is on the team for 2 years, he can earn up to $1.98 million in compensation. Again, reading this from our friends at Pride of Detroit. Of course, Jake Bates did not kick a single field goal in college, was just a kickoff guy. Hit 17 out of 22 this year in the UFL. And I'm excited because the guy's got a big leg and can really kick it. And this is providing some big-time competition for Michael Badgley. And we thought James Turner, because James Turner did a really good job during mandatory minicamp in pushing Michael Badgley, the former Michigan kicker. Well, today, in order to make room on the roster, I thought the Lions were going to have 3 kickers. The Lions released James Turner. And now it's down to Michael Badgley, the money badger, who spent the last parts of the last 2 seasons with Detroit, and Jake Bates. I said it yesterday. Bates getting a 2-year deal from the Lions and getting $150,000 guaranteed, I think, was to keep him away from Green Bay. I really believe that. Anders Carlson had a rough rookie year last year. I know Matt LaFleur has said they expect Carlson to bounce back and have a much better year too, but why wouldn't the Packers talk to Bates, which they did, and try to see if there's something there. But Jake Bates getting 2 years, and now it is down to him and Michael Badgley for the job, is going to be very, very intriguing and fun to watch come training camp in like 6 weeks or whatever it is, 5 weeks. I think it's going to be awesome to see. I've said this every day on the show, it seems like. I just don't feel like, I think this is the most serious kicker move the Lions have made under Brad Holmes. I believe that. I think that there's a commitment to the place kicking situation that's a little bit different than I've seen in the past. They've gone through the Riley Patterson train like 50 times. They've had Badgley in and out of here 50 times. They've had other randoms. Bates getting 2 years and them giving him an opportunity with $150,000 guarantee to push Badgley seems real to me. Seems like they went out and got a guy that starred this summer. this spring in the UFL. And so I'm excited about that. I want to see what he's got, because when you're making 64 yarders, and I know there was no fans in the stands, there's like 9,000 fans, and he wasn't even kicking it. When he was kicking into those end zones, there were no fans in the end zones. No one's waving at him like when Ford Field is packed to the gills, or, Lambeau Field or anything like that. But I'm excited to watch this pan out, because it was obvious, especially in the NFC Championship game, while Dan Campbell says all the right things about Michael Badgley, he did not trust him from 47 yards out on grass out in San Francisco when they needed points. And maybe he'll have more of a trust in a guy that, was making 64 yarders with plenty of room to spare at Ford Field. All right. Made you a promise. Trying a new thing twice a week on the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays called Call of the Day. We've got a way of listeners and viewers to communicate to the show and get featured. And it's my SpeakPipe account. It is called SpeakPipe, SPEAK, pipe, PIPE.com/Dery podcast page, DERY podcast page. Our winning call today, our first call of the day, comes from one of our listeners by the name of Ty Turner. Ty, we appreciate you. Thank you, Clinton Fitzgerald and others, for also hitting us up. But Ty was the winner. Check out what Ty had to say on our SpeakPipe page yesterday.
What's going on, Matt Dery? My name is Ty. I am born and raised in Detroit, but I live in Dallas. I am also a YouTuber like yourself, and I am a everydayer. And let me say, I was an everydayer before it was cool, before it had a name. I've been an everydayer for at least 3 years now. But this is what I want to say. I think people are sleeping on how this improvement to the secondary will help the defensive line. I think people forget how bad the secondary was. And by having a lockdown secondary, it will help improve how many sacks we get. And also, I like the fact that Brad Holmes didn't spend all the money on one player, but they brought in a few extra pieces just so that they can have a fresh rotation of defensive ends and pass rushers. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good idea? Because I certainly do. Anyway, when you get time, make sure you follow me back on YouTube at Flash Film Academy, and I look forward to hearing your response.
All right, there it is, our first SpeakPipe and call of the day. It's from our friend Ty Turner, one of our everydayers. Thank you, Ty. And Ty brings up a lot of good points, including the fact that this is what Brad Holmes does. Brad Holmes looks up and says, let me get Marcus Davenport an edge rusher. Let me give James Houston a chance. Let's have competition instead of spending $30 million on Brian Burns or $25 million on Daniil Hunter with the secondary, like Ty said. Went out and got Ennis Rakestraw in the second round. Went out and got, Terran Arnold in the first round. He's not just going to draft one corner. If he thinks he needs two, he's going to get two. So I thought that was a very good call by Ty, and appreciate his time in sending in that SpeakPipe. And you can do the same thing. We're looking for a call of the day for Thursday. Go to speakpipe.com/Dery podcast page and send in your submissions. Keep them clean. Everybody was so nice. I know eventually someone's going to prank us, but thank you to everybody that sent those in. Appreciate that. My guy Clinton was like a close second. He did a great job too. So appreciate all of you that sent in those submissions. Real fast, I was at a all-day meeting today for work, and we were getting on the discussion of just like leaders and leadership and how if they allow and listen to their people and to their staffs and to their leadership teams and allow for discussion, that normally it will lead to success and progress within the organization. It wasn't even a sports conversation. And I brought up to the team today about Dan Campbell. And I said, there are so many head coaches that would have pushed very, very hard for their coordinators when they were interviewing for head coaching jobs to get them out of there. And that's not Dan Campbell at all. Dan Campbell is the type of guy that says, hey, Ben Johnson's helping me. He's running this offense. It's a well-oiled machine. I want Ben Johnson to stay. I want to give him all this responsibility and get out of the way, which is what Dan Campbell does. Remember the discussion a few years ago about who's going to call the plays? It's worked out the last 2 years for Ben Johnson. And Dan Campbell just he empowers his coaching staff, whether it's Randall L. or Fraley or AG, Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson or whomever, Scotty Montgomery. He allows his coaches to coach. And that just provides for an unbelievable culture, a great environment, and for coaches to want to come. Terrell Williams is one of the best defensive line coaches in the league. He was still the Titans D-line coach, and the Lions were like, come on over. And he did. That's what winning's about. And I'll make an analogy about winning in the NBA coming up next, because I saw some Lions similarities when I was watching the NBA Finals Game 5 last night. I will get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. All right, so if you watched the NBA Finals at all, look, it wasn't very exciting. There were a ton of blowouts. The Mavericks were completely overmatched. Kyrie Irving completely was terrible. Luka wasn't much better. And the Boston Celtics won their 18th NBA championship, winning in 5 games last night and blowing out the Mavs in game 5 last night. Couple of things. Number one, I see some similarities between what the Celtics built and what the Lions are building. Number one, yes, the Celtics have 2 awesome players, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. They've both been all NBA and all of that. When you walk down the street or you talk to buddies and you go, who are the best players in the NBA? Who do people say? Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Halliburton, Embiid. Do people bring up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Maybe a little bit, but they're not considered the stars of the game like a LeBron is, like Wemby was this year. All right. The Celtics put a really good roster together of solid guys. They had a head coach in Joe Mazzulla who never, ever wanted credit, empowered his coaching staff, had a really good staff. One of his staffers, one of his assistant coaches, Charles Lee, is becoming the head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. Mazzulla never wanted the spotlight, never wanted to make it about him. And the Celtics played together. They played defense. They had a great locker room. Guys were unselfish. You see how happy Tatum was last night for Brown to win the NBA Finals MVP? Tatum didn't care. All Tatum wanted was the big trophy. And I see a lot of similarities like that with the Lions. Do the Lions have a guy that people say, who's the best player in the NFL? Do people mention Penei Sewell or Amon-Ra St. Brown? We might in Detroit, but not nationally. Lions just have a lot of solid pieces. They've added some veterans. The Celtics went out and got Drew Holiday. The Lions feel like they're going out and getting a Carlton Davis, guys like that. DJ Reader. Right? Drew Holiday is not a great player, but damn, he's good and is a leader. And all he wants to do is win. So, the Celtics went through some rough times the last few years, losing big games and big series deep into the playoffs. Lions last year in San Francisco were 30 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl. We all felt it. We were like, oh my gosh, it's 27-7. This is incredible. Right? And you felt like there's no way the Lions were going to relinquish that lead at halftime. Now, they did. It was terrible. 27-10. What you know what I'm thinking. All right. It was rough. But you gotta lose and you gotta feel it and you gotta get there and lose to then get back and win. And so I see that scenario where the Celtics had to go through it and the Lions are going through it right now. I just see a lot of similarities. And it's interesting. I know many of you watch this show or listen to Locked On Lions. You want football content. You want Lions content, right? We just got done with an NBA playoffs that I thought was extremely, extremely boring. The Knicks-Sixers first round series had some intrigue. The Pacers series with the Knicks was semi-entertaining. But there weren't a lot of great, exciting games. There weren't a lot of buzzer beaters. There weren't a lot of 7-game series. There weren't a lot of, rivalries being started. What if we get back to a Lions-Niners NFC Championship game again? I mean, that would just, the buildup would be unbelievable. Another chance to knock them off. This time, hopefully the Lions would do it. Who knows? Could the game be at Ford Field? Could you imagine an NFC Championship game here? But regardless of like whether the games are exciting or not, like although the NFL playoffs this year had some unbelievable games, some games that came down to the end. I just remember watching the NFL, the playoffs from 2 years ago with Riley Patterson kicking that field goal for Jacksonville against the Chargers. Like those are memorable games. The NBA playoffs just had way too many blowouts, way too many times teams just got knocked to the ground and didn't get back up. The Mavs last night, they didn't quit. The game was over an hour and a half into it. It was kind of lame. It hungers. I'm yearning for football again. NFL football, of course. All right, that'll do it for a Tuesday edition of a Locked On Lions. Thanks everybody for participating, making us your first listen each and every day right here on Locked On Lions. We are back again tomorrow, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.